What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 4-4 YouTube channel. Welcome back to another matchups video. I'm Hutchinson Brown here with 4-4. Going to be talking about some matchups that I like and don't like this week for fantasy football. We're going to go through a handful of things to help you set your fantasy football lineups for this week. Before I get into that, please, I'd appreciate it if you were to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Click that little notification bell so you'll be notified every single time new videos drop. And as long with that, follow me on Twitter. I'm at HutchinsonB_FF. I'm a TH content creator trying to find his way in the fantasy football space. So any support from me would be greatly appreciated. So here we go. The first one I want to talk about is the Denver passing offense. I'm extremely worried about the Denver passing offense this week going against the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. First off, it's Thursday Night Football. Things can get really wacky on Thursday Night Football, especially on the offensive side. Things tend to sometimes not work out the way we want them to. The Chiefs' passing defense has been one of the best in the league this year in terms of fantasy points allowed, in terms of yards allowed. Their passing defense has been playing at an elite level. They have never allowed the perceived wide receiver one of an offense to go for 61 yards this season. Justin Jefferson did get hurt in his last week's game with the Kansas City Chiefs, but he was in the fourth quarter and only had 3 catches and wasn't even close to 60 yards. He probably wouldn't have hit it, even if he had played in the fourth quarter. Jerry Jeudy is a player that I would not expect a high output from this week. The Chiefs defense are just all over passing, and I expect a couple interceptions from Russell Wilson. I don't expect this game to be fun for the Broncos. So I would be benching Broncos passing weapons if you can this week. So the next matchup I really like is the same game, Thursday Night Football. I'm talking about Isiah Pacheco. I really like Isiah Pacheco this week. It's hard not to start any running back against the Denver Broncos. The Broncos have allowed 821 yards on the ground this year so far. That is 181 yards more than any other NFL team. They're coming off a game where they just let Breece Hall run all over them for nearly 200 yards. They've allowed 42.34 fantasy points per game this season. That's about 12 points per game more than any other NFL team. The Carolina Panthers are not close behind at 31st with about just over 30 points allowed per game. And Isiah Pacheco is coming off 3 straight top 15 fantasy football performances. He's been crushing it as of late for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's really impossible not to start him. He is a player you must lock in your lineups. He is a perfect play for this week. The next matchup I want to talk about, I am really nervous about Kirk Cousins this week heading into a game with no Justin Jefferson. Without Justin Jefferson in this offense, we could see Kirk Cousins struggle. They do have the Bears this week, and the Bears have been a perceivingly nice matchup for quarterbacks and for running backs and for everything so far this year. But last week, we saw a really big firelight for them. Really big firelight for this defense. I mean, it was just difference. And if they want to keep that going, they're going to have the opportunity here with no Justin Jefferson in the offense. So I'm quite scared of starting Kirk Cousins this week with no Justin Jefferson. We've never seen with Justin Jefferson before, so we don't know how it's going to go. So Kirk Cousins is your QB1 this week. If he is your QB1, I'd be a little bit nervous. I'd be looking for other options potentially. Another matchup for this week, I want to talk about Alvin Kamara. He is back. In PPR leagues, he has finished top 10 twice. In 2 weeks played. He's had 17 targets in this time span, and he's getting the full-time role. He looks solid with it, and he's a must-start against the Texans this week. The Texans are horrific against running backs in terms of fantasy points allowed. He's a smash play. He's right back in your lineups. So the next one, start every one of the Seahawks and Bengals game. This is the game that I think could be the highest scoring matchup of the week. These are 2 good offenses against 2 questionable defenses. Seattle has already been in multiple games that have gone 60-plus points, and the Bengals offense looked back at it again last week. They look great. They look back to their old selves. Joe Burrow looked really good last week. I mean, even before the game, he was smiling in interviews and saying, I think I'm feeling good, and he looked fantastic out there. Even with no T. Higgins playing, it didn't matter. Jamar Chase put up a heck of a performance. I expect the Bengals and the Seahawks to have a really high-scoring game, like 60-plus point range, maybe even the 70s. Like, this is going to be a high-scoring game. So any locked-in players, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, those guys are all locked in your lineup as long as Higgins is playing. And then, looking at the Seattle side of the ball, Walker, Metcalf, Lockett, Geno, all locked into your lineup. I don't mind a JSN or a Charbonnet Shart.
What did he say?
So the next matchup we got to talk about, we want to bench Miles Sanders this week. I mean, I talked about Miles Sanders, a huge bench last week. It worked out for me. But Miles Sanders, I don't want a part of him. The matchup is really intriguing this week with Miami. Miami's defense has not been great against the run so far this year. They've been pretty on and off. And this could be a really high-scoring game. The Dolphins look to put up points, and the Panthers might have to keep up. Bryce Young is back. But Sanders has been struggling for fantasy so far this year. After week 1, so weeks 2 through 5, he has not been able to put up a game of 65-plus yards, and he's barely been fantasy relevant. He's only had 2 games this year that have gone 10-plus PPR points. So far, he hasn't been great for fantasy football. And each of the last 2 weeks, he's been outsnapped by his teammate Chuba Hubbard. And even last week, he was outtouched by Chuba Hubbard. It was a game where it got out of hand quickly, but still, Chuba Hubbard got a lot of touches. So Miles Sanders, if this trend continues, Miles Sanders is going to be irrelevant in fantasy football. So I'm not starting him this week, even with a tempting Miami matchup. And then the last matchup that I want to talk about for this week is the Jets matchup with the Eagles. You got to start Breece Hall. I know the Eagles' run defense has been scary. I know Breece Hall has been a questionable start so far this year. But Breece Hall, after what he did last week, is impossible to bench any week. He's purely an RB1. After what we saw last week, I expect him to be an RB1 the rest of the way. He looks healthy. He looks fantastic. He looks explosive. He looks powerful. He looks he looks like everything he was drafted to be when he was drafted in the second round. I am super excited for him, even against the Eagles, the tough run defense. I don't care. Start Breece Hall. He's an RB1 in fantasy the rest of the season. Don't be scared of the matchup. All right, everybody. But that's going to be it for the weekly matchup previews. Thank you so much for tuning in. So those are some matchups I love. So those are some matchups I hate for fantasy football to help you set your fantasy football lineups. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click that little notification bell so you'll be notified every single time a new video drops. And follow me on Twitter. I'm at HutchinsonB_FF. We'll see you all next week. Actually, no, I'm on this channel multiple times a week. So we'll see you guys whenever I post next on this channel.